You smell it before you see it. Charcoal, fat-hitting flame. Something ancient wakes up in your chest. You don't think about why a grilling steak makes your mouth water before you've even sat down. It just does. But the real answer is far stranger than hunger. Your craving for cooked food is not a preference. It is a fossil. It is a memory carved into your biology by a decision your ancestors made roughly 2 million years ago, one so radical it rewired the human body from the inside out. Picture an early hominin on the African savanna, small brain, massive gut, jaws built like a vice, because raw meat and fibrous plants demand hours of chewing every single day. Some estimate our ancestors spent nearly half of their waking hours just grinding food between their teeth. Imagine that. Half your day gone to chewing. No time for much else. No long conversations. No idle wandering to scout new territory. Digestion was a full-time job and the body paid for it in exhaustion. Then something changes. Fire enters the picture. Not fire as a weapon. Not fire as a light source. Fire as a tool for something far more intimate. Digestion. Here is what almost nobody realizes. Cooking is not really about taste. Cooking is pre-digestion. When you heat food, you break down proteins before they ever reach your stomach. You unwind collagen, you rupture muscle fibers, you do in minutes over a flame what your gut would otherwise labor for hours to do internally. Cooking outsources digestion to fire. Why does that matter so much? Harvard biologist Richard Wrangham built an entire theory around this single insight. He calls it the cooking hypothesis. His claim is bold. Cooking, not tool use, not hunting alone, is what made us human. Wrangham argues that softened, energy-dense cooked food allowed early Homo bodies to shrink their guts and grow their brains, because both organs are expensive, and a body can only afford to feed one of them lavishly. Your brain right now, sitting behind your eyes, burns through roughly 20% of your body's daily energy. 20%. For an organ that weighs about 2% of your total mass, raw food could never pay that bill consistently. Cooked food could. So think about the trade: smaller gut, bigger brain, less time chewing, more time thinking, socializing, planning. Cooking didn't just fill your ancestors' stomachs, it funded the most expensive organ evolution has ever built. But could early humans really control fire that far back? That question divided researchers for decades. Then came a cave in South Africa. Wonderwork Cave sits deep in the Kalahari, layered with 1 million years of sediment. In 2012, archaeologist Francesco Berna and his team examined ash and burned bone fragments buried nearly 1 million years deep in that cave floor. Using microscopic analysis, they confirmed this wasn't wildfire residue blown in by wind. This was controlled, contained burning deep inside a cave where lightning could never reach. That finding pushed the timeline of habitual fire use back further than almost anyone expected. It meant Homo erectus, your distant, thick-browed ancestor, wasn't just surviving near fire, it was managing it, feeding it, protecting it through the night. Think about what that required. Someone had to gather dry fuel before the flame existed. Someone had to shield a fragile ember from wind and rain. This wasn't a lucky accident. This was a discipline, repeated daily, taught to children who would one day teach their own. Now here's where it gets strange. Controlling fire is hard, so why bother? Why commit to something this labor-intensive? Because raw meat is a terrible deal. Chew it, and you extract only a fraction of its calories. Your gut works overtime, fermenting and breaking down tough fibers, wasting energy just processing what you already ate. Cooking flips that equation entirely. In 2009, Harvard researcher Rachel Carmody, working alongside Wrangham, ran an experiment that made this brutally clear. She fed mice identical meat, some raw, some cooked, then measured how much weight the mice gained. The cooked meat mice gained significantly more weight from the exact same food, same calories on paper, wildly different calories in reality. Cooking wasn't adding energy to the meat, it was unlocking energy that was always trapped inside it. Multiply that advantage across 100,000 years, across countless generations, and you start to see something enormous. A population that cooks doesn't just eat better, it reproduces better. It survives leaner seasons better. It raises more surviving offspring. Cooking also kills pathogens. Fire destroys parasites and bacteria hiding inside raw meat, organisms that could cripple or kill an early hunter with a single bad meal. A population that cooks is quietly filtering out an entire category of invisible threats. Fewer infections, fewer deaths from spoiled food. Evolution rewards efficiency ruthlessly, and cooking was, without exaggeration, the single greatest efficiency upgrade in the history of the human diet. But there's a twist. Cooking didn't just change your ancestors' bodies, it changed their teeth, their jaws, even their faces. Compare a chimpanzee skull to a human skull side by side. The chimpanzee has a jutting jaw, heavy chewing muscles, a face built like industrial machinery. Humans have small jaws, small teeth, flat faces tucked beneath a swollen skull. That is architecture responding to a menu. Once food arrived pre-softened by fire, natural selection stopped favoring massive jaws and grinding molars. Every ounce of bone and muscle your body doesn't spend on chewing is an ounce it can invest elsewhere. Cooking freed up a construction budget evolution had spent on jaws for millions of years and redirected it toward the brain. There's another shift hiding in this story, one that has nothing to do with bones or calories. Cooking changed how your ancestors spent their evenings. Raw eating tends to be solitary. Small mouthfuls grazed throughout the day. Cooked food required a gathering point, a fire, a shared space where meat was prepared and divided among the group. For the first time, mealtime became an event, not a scattered chore. Around that fire, conversation likely took root. Storytelling, the teaching of skills from elder to child. That campfire wasn't just where your ancestors cooked their food, it may have been where they cooked culture itself. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This isn't ancient trivia. This is still running inside you right now. Your gut is roughly 60% smaller than a chimpanzee's gut relative to body size. Your jaw muscles are a fraction of the strength theirs are. You are, quite literally, built for cooked food. Feed a modern human a strictly raw diet, and studies tracking raw food communities have found something telling. Even highly motivated adults eating raw fruits, vegetables, and occasional raw meat often struggle to maintain healthy body weight because the body cannot extract enough usable energy fast enough. You are not choosing cooked food out of laziness. Your ancestors already made that choice for you 2 million years ago, and it reshaped the very organs you inherited. So the next time that smell hits you, the char, the smoke, the fat dripping into flame, understand what's actually happening. That is not a modern craving. That is a message traveling across nearly 100,000 generations. Cook this, soften this, feed the brain that fire built. You didn't invent the fascination with fire and food. You inherited it, fully installed, from ancestors who traded raw strength for something far more valuable. A mind large enough to ask one day why it wants what it wants. You smell it before you see it, and now you finally know why.